with Kaepernick working out for the Las Vegas Raiders on Wednesday, what's the likelihood of him actually signing with the Raiders?
Well, I'm looking at it and I'm saying first and foremost, who is on this roster? It's Derek Carr, Jarrett Stidham, Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins has played some meaningful football for the 49ers at some point. Jarrett Stidham was the backup for New England, right? Wasn't
Yes,
that your
sir.
backup?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, he got no meaningful burn. So it's Derek Carr and Mullins. Um, Mullins was in that era right after Kaepernick kind of left. It was him, C.J. Beathard, and a couple of other quarterbacks that kind of were in that rotation with Blaine Gabbert. And it's kind of funny how things come full circle. Is what I'm getting at. Um,
Scrubs.
yes, we all don't know the physical capabilities of what Colin Kaepernick is right now. We haven't seen him play meaningful football in years. However, I will go based solely off of the athlete that he was when he was in the league. You cannot tell me that Colin Kaepernick is not good enough to be on an NFL roster, whether that is practice squad, scouting, on the scout team, third team, and second team. Second team being the stretch. Second team being, like that peak performance, he's actually solid. There are plenty of quarterbacks in this league where you look at it and say, how in the hell are you on a roster? Kyle made the point before we started recording. Brian Hoyer. If a veteran that cannot move, that cannot throw past 30 yards, is on an active roster to hold a clipboard, Colin can do that. You're telling me that Colin Kaepernick cannot be better than, oh my God, where do I start? Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Geno Smith. I mean, realistically, we're talking Joe Flacco is still in this league, for God's sakes, and that man is damn near 40. Ben Roethlisberger was playing with one leg, and I know that Ben still at his age is better, but I'm just saying, if we're talking about longevity, we had plenty of quarterbacks that were well past their prime that were still active. Colin Kaepernick deserves his opportunity just based off of his sheer talent alone. I'm not talking about anything political. By no means does this have anything to do with his stance or my beliefs or lack thereof of what he was trying to do for social injustice. Colin Kaepernick did enough in the NFL to show that he is a fully capable backup quarterback on any NFL team. Again, I'm not saying he's going to beat out Carr for the starting job. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and lead the Raiders to a Super Bowl if Derek Carr were to, God forbid, like knock on wood, tear his ACL in week one. This is more of a, I think that he was so blackballed behind the politics that people forgot the athlete that he was. And people forgot how good he was on the football field. Did he have an up and down year towards the end of it? Absolutely. Injuries, inconsistencies, coaching changes. I mean, there was so much stuff going on out there in San Francisco that made you believe, you know what, he was at a Super Bowl caliber quarterback level. He was mobile. He had a good arm. They had a good team built around him, and he went to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had the potential. Had a couple of bad years. Was immediately discarded from the organization. So, Colin, the athlete, Colin, the football player, I believe rightfully deserves an opportunity. And if the Raiders decide to give him a chance, I think that he takes Stidham's spot. I think he has to earn the number 2 spot for Nick Mullins. I think that for sure, with his experience, just his experience alone, that would be good for Derek Carr because Derek Carr hasn't made it out of the first round. I think that would be good for Nick Mullins because that keeps him competing, saying, oh shit, I don't want to lose my second fiddle if Derek were to go down. Colin Kaepernick deserves a spot. I think that if he is in peak physical condition, if he is to actually check all the boxes that the Raiders are looking for in terms of physical football capabilities, kick the tires on it, bro. You know for a fact he's going to make less than the vet minimum because of everything that's happened out there. You're not going to give him a fully guaranteed contract. You're going to give him a bunch of incentive-based contracts and maybe a signing bonus. It's a literal low risk, low reward kind of situation. I don't see a real bad part about them signing him.
Kevin, if we're just specifically talking about his skills as a football player, I think
100%.
like when it comes to like what he could do, I think that he could be a viable backup. But that's pretty much the extent of it. I mean, it's been 5 years since he played in the NFL. The last time he
6.
played, it was 2017, I think, was actually the last one.
2016.
Okay. So even with that 5, 6 years ago, really doesn't matter. I mean, that's a long time. And I understand like him as an athlete. Like I imagine he's still in relatively somewhat decent condition if he's actually getting a workout with the Raiders. Now, when it comes to him getting signed by the Raiders, I think it's 50-50. I'm not really sold on the idea that they're actually going to sign him. And let me break it down to you like this. Let me give you like two reasons why I think they should and two reasons why they shouldn't. And I'm going to do my best to not like really get into the whole political side, but there will be kind of like one point in particular where I think you might understand where I'm coming from with this. So let's start with like the two reasons when it comes to him actually making the roster and why. I think, him as a backup, I think it could actually serve a decent purpose for the Raiders just because, if God forbid Derek Carr were to go down, I think Kaepernick might be a better option than what the Raiders have at that quarterback room. Because let's face it, Jarrett Stidham, honestly, he's really got no burn in the NFL. I mean, he was behind Tom Brady for a little bit before Brady left to Tampa. And then people were thinking that Stidham could have been the number one guy when Cam Newton came into the fold, but Newton got the starting job. And then Mac Jones ended up getting the starting spot for the Patriots after he got drafted out of Alabama. So when you look at the quarterback room for the Raiders, I do think that he could improve the backup spot for the Raiders just based off of the current list of quarterbacks that they have. So that's one element. And then the second element is I like the fact that he could still use his legs to be able to extend plays. And that was really one of his biggest attributes when he was playing with the 49ers. I mean, he got them all the way to a Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens, and I believe it was Super Bowl 47. And it's not to say that like Colin Kaepernick was trash. I mean, when he first started his career, he was a solid quarterback, and it was really his legs that really kind of was the game changer. Really that the read option was so effective. I'll never forget the one play that he ran that read option against the Packers in the NFC Championship game where he bolted for like a 65 to 70-yard touchdown run where he just outran everybody. You know, he had a good start to his career, but as time went along, the NFL and teams made adjustments against him to the point where he was kind of predictable. And you saw a precipitous drop off in his production. Now, you could blame that on coaching staff issues. You could blame that on just player rotation. Guys were getting older. They were bringing new players into the fold, and the team wasn't as viable anymore. That's all true. But as a quarterback, when you look at some of his stats, towards the end of his career with the 49ers, well, let's face it. The guy was throwing, like 9 to 10 touchdowns a game. I mean, not 9 to 10 touchdowns a game, 9 to 10 touchdowns a season. So, there's definitely some room to be desired there. Now, let me focus on the negative aspects of why bringing him in may not be the best thing. It's like I said, he hasn't been on an NFL team in 5 to 6 years. We don't know how viable he's going to be, even in a backup role. Because, if you look at the workout, just because he worked out doesn't mean that he actually did well in the workout. I mean, if you want to just be, positive about it, you would hope that he would do fine in the workout and he would show that the Raiders, that he still has something left in the tank. But we don't really know that yet. And when you've been out of the game that long, and, with him, he has kind of a pretty obvious record of what he's done the last 5-6 years with really being a social activist. We just don't know how well he's going to, transition back into the NFL, if that's actually the case, if he does get signed. And there's no guarantee that he will get signed just based off of just one workout with the Raiders. And then this is the second part. And this is where I kind of have to be careful, because Kevin and I really try to make it a point to not really inject politics into this. Obviously, Colin Kaepernick has a very clear stance on how he feels about really just kind of like the social issues that the country has at the current moment in time. Is he going to bring that into the locker room? And I think that's something that you kind of have to consider. Not to the point where it's like, yeah, we're not bringing you in because of that alone. But I think if the Raiders were to think about signing him, it would come with the idea of, look, we understand where your stances are on all of these political issues at this current moment in time. But it's like when you come here to work, you have to put that to the side when you're at work. If you want to do that in your free time, when the season's over and you can do whatever you want, that's fine. But it's like when you're here to play, football, you have to be all of that. And I think it kind of comes with the territory of maybe the Raiders just don't want to deal with that type of distraction if he's going to inject politics throughout the season. And that's really kind of the thing is, when it comes to the Raiders specifically, I think they want to keep a lot of the players focused on, going out and trying to compete for the top of the AFC West, which is going to be a very difficult endeavor because of how stacked that division is. And then when you start injecting some sort of political commentary based on, Kaepernick stances, if he actually starts, kind of going down that path, that's another thing. Then it kind of becomes a whole different scenario at that point where the team is kind of more in the headlines based on what Kaepernick is saying for political stances than what the team is actually trying to achieve as far as, trying to compete for a Super Bowl. And that's kind of one of these things. It's like, I understand, players, they have their feelings and they have their opinions on certain social matters and certain social issues. And I don't begrudge them for having those opinions. But it's like, you have to understand, like, you have to focus on your job. And, the job is try to compete at the highest level possible to try to win a Super Bowl. And that's a priority. Because that's what makes these guys money. That's what, brings, food on the table for them. Their political stances and how they, see what's going on around the world. I understand it can be very important to them, and I don't begrudge that point, but it's kind of secondary based on, that type of landscape doesn't really bring them money, unless you're Colin Kaepernick, where he made like millions of dollars outside of football because he fully dove into the whole social justice realm. But the way that I look at it is, Kaepernick as an athlete, I can't deny the fact that he's a solid athlete. The guy is incredibly talented. Kevin, we can't deny that. It's just, when it comes to the Raiders possibly signing him, it's just the certain things that you have to kind of factor in. You kind of have to weigh the pros and the cons when it comes to him. Obviously, the pros is he's a great athlete. He's shown that in his NFL career. And the cons is he going to be a distraction with all the political commentary that he may bring into the fold? That's something that they're going to have to kind of figure out if they want to sign him on to the roster going into this season. But, if I had to say, just based off of his skill set alone, and you put the politics to the side, I think that he can earn a backup spot in the NFL. Could it be with the Raiders? Potentially. We'll kind of see how it plays out. But I think just based off of his skill set alone, I think he could earn a backup spot. But it's like I said, he has to earn it. He doesn't deserve one. He has to earn it. And that just kind of goes without saying. But, we'll see what happens. But, obviously it's an interesting story. We'll keep an eye on it. But I think when it's all said and done, I wouldn't be mad if he got a backup spot. I think a starting spot is way too far. I think if anybody's really starting to say, like, he deserves a starting spot in the NFL, I think they've gone too far because I don't think his skill set's there anymore. But a backup, I think he could get that.